Hey everyone, welcome. I'm career coach Rod, for those of you who don't know me, and I'm an expert at getting clinical people into digital health. Now, the very first time that I had a client pay me $75 an hour, I was convinced that someone in accounts had made a mistake, or I had made a mistake, or there was some mistake that was going to get caught. But we'll get to that. Welcome to the Better Bargain, episode 5. Tonight, what your clinical judgment is actually worth, and why you are probably the last person to see it. I did the arithmetic back then, twice, and then again and again. $75 an hour is $150,000 a year, and my honest reaction was, surely nobody pays that much for me. So drop it in the chat. Have you ever looked at a rate or a salary and thought, nobody would ever pay that for me? Or its cousin, it's too risky to leave. Tell me which one lives in your head. When I brought home, let's flash back here. When I brought home the college paperwork from college day at the local high school, my dad bridged his fingers and asked, so how are you going to pay for all of that? I was kind of devastated and let down, but in retrospect, they were not being cruel. They genuinely didn't know. They didn't know how, because nobody had ever shown them. So I worked. Afternoon work release, my from high school, right? Just doing my job while I was still in school. I saved my money. I stuffed it in an envelope attached to the refrigerator. I called it my college sock. And that envelope paid my way into my first semester. And here's why I tell you that. The first thing that I learned about money was that nobody was coming to fund my reinvention. And that's not bleak, it's freedom. But the second lesson took 20 more years. The number on my own price tag had been set at that kitchen table. And most of us are still carrying around an inherited number. So the question tonight isn't what's the pay rise, it's who set your number, and is it true? Was it right? This summer in England, resident doctors accepted a pay deal that ended 3 years of strikes, but nearly half of those who voted still said no. I don't read that as greed. I read it as thousands of intelligent people sensing the problem was never the percentage. It's the ceiling of the salaried model itself. One number set by somebody you'll never meet, moved in increments, capped by something called a band. Meanwhile, same weeks, same system. The NHS committed £10 billion over 3 years to technology and AI. An AI triage tool going into the NHS app, an AI note-taking rolling out to cut staff administration. Therefore, the demand for people who understand clinical work is being repriced upwards while the bands stay flat. The King's Fund published a report in late July about scaling ambient voice technology, and that's the AI that listens and writes the clinical notes. Every one of those tools needs a clinical person to build it, check it, and lead it. That's the gap that tonight is about. The belief that keeps you under the ceiling, the skills that come the easiest to me must be worth the least. That's backwards. The skills that come the easiest to you are the ones that you price at zero, and they're usually the ones the market values the most. So it's something I go back and forth on, honestly. Half the books on my shelf, they say, decide the number, believe it hard enough, and the outcome follows. And the other half say you can't will an outcome at all. You can only structure your bets. So here's where I've landed. The beliefs set your state, and evidence sets your price. I never have believed my way from $75 to $95 an hour. The 75 was unthinkable to begin with. How does it go up from there? The evidence moved that number, but I still use belief for energy. I hold both, and I don't see any reason to resolve that. Everyone assumes the premium is for being technical, and it never was. The rate is the price of clinical judgment nobody else in the building has. On my old consulting contract, I untangled documentation problems that nobody else had cracked, intensive care workflows, medicine processes that were genuinely degrading care. And here's the thing, none of it felt remarkable to me. It felt like an ordinary Tuesday. And that's the trap. Your ordinary Tuesday is somebody else's unsolvable problem. These were problems that we trained in school to solve. It's not big, complicated into the world, bleeding edge kind of problems. Where clinical judgment gets priced right now, honestly, clinical informatics is the first really proven rung, and it's typically somewhere in the mid 5 figures to the low 6 figures. Senior certified roles are clearing more than that. Healthcare consulting roles for clinicians commonly sit far above clinical salary bands, and advisory or fractional work, consulting that's income built alongside your salary, is how self-employment often begins. Ranges, not promises. Benchmark, the real adverts. The honest caveat, because you deserve it, is the generic digital health job titles often average below clinical salaries. So just changing your title is not career advancement. The premium follows positioned expertise. The roles only someone like you who has actually done the work can hold. A rebrand is a sideways move, and repricing is growth. And there's a window this month. Europe's AI rules start applying to high-risk health AI, and regulators everywhere are moving in the same direction. So every hospital and every vendor needs clinical people who can stand between the algorithm and the patient. We watched this exact curve with electronic records. The clinicians who positioned themselves early in terms of service kept the high-paying jobs for a decade. AI is tracking the same curve through 2027 to 2029. The field will fill up. It hasn't yet. I used to think that my net worth was whatever the band said, whatever the contract said, whatever the going rate was. Now I know that that was never measuring my worth. It was measuring somebody else's budget. The move is not a leap. It's a structure. Keep the salary. That end stays safe and boring, paying the bills. Then build one expertise-based work stream by design, a small consulting engagement, a paid advisory hour, an informatics project inside your current employer. Not 5 streams and not out of desperation. 1, choose it deliberately. Multiple revenue streams begin with a single deliberate one. Therefore, the risk question changes shape. You're not gambling the mortgage. You're pricing one slice of the judgment you already own. 4 moves this week. Write your rate evidence list, 10 problems from the last year that only your judgment could have solved. Problems, not tasks. Benchmark 3 real roles from actual advertisements, ranges, never single figures, and choose your one stream. Let's take action on that. And have an honest conversation with a clinician who's already doing the work. It'll recalibrate your number faster than a month of reading through websites. This has happened for every client that I've had. I've had one lady who started as a physical therapist, and she had worked for many years on her normal path to retirement. Once she began in digital health, the cap on her pay just got completely blown out, and she was making in months what she would have made in years. Yeah, that changes your view on retirement, right? So what we need to do is get past the things that are keeping us from this reality that's right there, from this opportunity that's just right there. You may think it's too risky to leave, and that's risk imagined as one binary jump, one big thing. And nobody said you had to do that. Salary at one end, deliberate bet on the other, nothing vague in the middle. I've been doing this 25 years. It's too late. The 20 years is the asset. The 25 years is the good part, not the sunk cost. The structure doesn't abandon them. It prices it in. I'll go when things settle down. Things don't settle. Name the loss you're actually protecting. Fence it, and take one small action this week. So if you're wondering if you can get into digital health here, what the work contains is structure, evidence list, benchmarking, positioning real conversations. I can tell you what has happened for people who've done it. I can't promise everything will happen for you or exactly how it will happen. So please be aware of anyone who says that they can. I think the thought that I'd like to leave you with tonight. Remember back when I said I was making $75 an hour. That was a huge leap for me. That was a gigantic jump. That probably doubled my salary at that point in life. So going from that to 95 was just mind blowing. Like where's the limit? I didn't discover my personal limit for a few years after that. I had a hard time wrapping my head around it. The ceiling is not the truth about your worth. It's just a view from somebody else and their budgetary perspective. When you're ready to talk, Rod Gamble is where to find me. rodgamble.com. See you soon.